We're not going to take a break any longer as we are ready to jump to the stage for the finals here in Orlando. Wolfe Glick versus Neil Patel. It is now time. Let's make some noise for these trainers as we get ready to kick off an exciting finals match.
Just to recap, Neil's previous achievements had not before got through top 8 at a regional, finally broke through that ceiling and has gone one further into the finals with top 8 finishes at Vancouver and Charlotte regionals this year, a top 16 at Sacramento, and of course a top 8 at Vancouver last year. I believe Neil is a Canadian at heart, so those 2 Vancouver finishes, cool to see, but has decided to make Orlando his breakthrough. That is an Urshifu Rapid Strike, a Rillaboom, an Incineroar, a Qianpao, a Raging Bolt, and an Ogerpon Hearthflame Mask coming out from Neil.
Many of these Pokemon are present on our top 12 usage graphic for this weekend, but not with this twist. You see that stellar terastallization on the Qianpao, water terastallization on the Rillaboom, photosynthesis to boost the attack of the Raging Bolt in addition to Calm Mind and Protect, and focus energy on the Ogerpon Hearthflame. That was something I was hoping we'd see come up against the Trick Room sort of teams in the past, but we'll have to see if it comes to play here against Wolfe.
Honestly, if I'm in Neil's spot and I had to choose between making my flight or playing in finals of a regional, I'm playing in the finals every single time. So
yeah, I respect
you can catch
it.
another flight. You got some prize money. It's fine. You got to stay at it and fight for the glory. So, of course, good luck to Neil. And, of course, Wolfe in this final match as well. Moving over to Wolfe, a previous world champion back in 2016, a Players Cup 2 champion in 2021, an NAIC champion in 2019, an 8-time regional champion. Who else can fill out a list of accomplishments with 11 champion? Like, I don't think anyone else can.
I think it would be someone in the juniors or the seniors division,
yeah,
honestly, which is just goes to show how incredible of an accomplishment this is for Wolfe, running a very similar team to what he ran at the European International Championships just 1 week ago. Urshifu Rapid Strike, Incineroar, Fluttermane, Amoonguss, Landorus Incarnate, and Tornadus Incarnate. I have a fun fact for you, Jake.
Hit it me.
This is actually the 8th out of 10th finals in North America that features somebody who has already been a finalist so far this year.
Wow.
Wolfe being that repeat person, also one step away from repeating the win here in Orlando as he was our previous Orlando regional champion in 2023.
That's really impressive, Gabby. There's so many finals that have been contested between a lot of the top players, but so far 9 different people able to come out on top. This would be the first time someone has won 2 regionals in the same season in 2024. The first time we've had a repeat winner on our regionals winners graphic. Wolfe is looking to both repeat his regional success this year and from last year here in Orlando in this Orlando 2024 regionals finals. Neil Patel is standing in his way. Turn 1 of game 1, we see the face down of the Incineroar with the Ogerpon for Neil and the Amoonguss for Wolfe.
There may be the GOATs of this tournament competing on stage right now, but it is the Incineroars that start off this match. Trading intimidates. That Amoonguss for Wolfe is in a tough spot as it has to worry about that big damage from the Ogerpon and potentially a flinch as well from Neil's Incineroar.
Neil's own Incineroar also carrying the safety goggles, so a really rough spot to be in if you are this Amoonguss. Notably, we saw Wolfe's Intimidate Incineroar activate first before Neil's, so indicates that it is either a speed tie, which we can't know, or Wolfe's is just trained to be a little bit faster. Good info for both of these players going forward, because if you're Neil, you at least know that you are not guaranteed to be faster than Wolfe's Incineroar.
Incineroar on Neil's side of the field going to sit back for a bit as the Urshifu is the Pokemon that takes its place. Spiky Shield onto that Ogerpon means it won't be taking any damage from the Sludge Bomb from Wolfe's Amoonguss.
A nice switch there. The Urshifu coming in favor of the Incineroar. Very unlikely for a Spore to be hitting that slot because of the safety goggles on that Incineroar. And now Urshifu threatens some big damage into the Incineroar on Wolfe's end. If Neil was to terastallize his Ogerpon, get that attack boost, return to neutral, and Ivy Cudgel most likely threatens a one-hit KO on Amoonguss, which would in turn allow Urshifu to attack Incineroar on the same turn. So now Wolfe has to be very wary of that play, possibly respond with a terastallization of his own, or even some pivoting with his own Pokemon.
I was just going to say, we've seen a Wolfe approach his games throughout the weekend with very defensive choices for his terrestrializations. We've seen the Amoonguss terrestrialize into the water type. We've seen the Incineroar terrestrialize into the grass type. Both of those would have been a smart play here for Wolfe, but he is going to start this turn off with the Urshifu, his own rapid strike Urshifu, taking the field, and then a combo play with the water type terrestrialization on the Amoonguss.
Really smart defensive play there. This allows Wolfe the flexibility to move some of his Pokemon around, keep this Amoonguss on the field without at risk of it being KO'd by a big fire-type Ivy Cudgel, but Focus Energy immediately coming through, boosting the critical hit rate of this Ogerpon, making it even more likely for critical hits from that Ivy Cudgel. Surging Strikes comes through into Wolfe's Urshifu. Resist it, luckily, will not be taking too much damage, and this Amoonguss will have the chance to possibly go for a Spore into Urshifu.
Amoonguss will also have the opportunity to go on the offense here if Wolfe wanted to play like the previous turn, but actually anticipated the Ogerpon's terrestrialization. But because Ogerpon is still a grass fire type Pokemon, that Spore failed.
The Spore fails, and more importantly, the Urshifu on Wolfe's end does not threaten super effective damage with Surging Strikes. Now this Ogerpon on Neil's end is a big threat. I believe a 50% chance to score a critical hit with Ivy Cudgel after that Focus Energy, which can negate any kind of Intimidate boost that we're seeing from the Incineroar. That's now -2, but it doesn't matter at all unless it gets a critical hit.
Well, Grassy Glide is not very effective, but it does get that critical hit onto the Incineroar. But the 1-2 combo Surging Strikes will be more than enough damage to remove that Pokemon from play. Amoonguss does get the opportunity to do something again this turn, but what did Wolfe pick? He goes for the Sludge Bomb. It will target down that Ogerpon and bring it down to below half its health and gets poisoned as well. So some good damage over time for Wolfe, but it looks like it's going to be 3 or 4 turns before the poison alone would knock out that Pokemon.
That's a pretty critical poison from the Sludge Bomb. It now means that if Wolfe brings in the Urshifu, he might have the opportunity to KO it with an Aqua Jet before the Ogerpon can go for a Grassy Glide. Of course, the Rillaboom switching in for Neil would empower the Grassy Glide to be a priority move instead of just neutral speed, but because the Urshifu is holding a Choice Scarf, Aqua Jet would still act before the Grassy Glide and possibly have a chance to KO it. We do, however, see Neil actually does not have the Rillaboom. It's going to be that Chien-Pao. So there's no chance for a priority Grassy Glide for this game, which means Urshifu on Wolfe's side should attack first.
It should attack first, but what target will Wolfe pick? Will he use the Amoonguss's more offensive capabilities once again, or will he try and finally align a Spore into the Urshifu, or dare I say, into the Incineroar, as Neil will switch in that Pokemon, bring back the Intimidate onto the opposing Urshifu, and try and give this Ogerpon the best possible chance to hold on, but it's actually just a Choice Scarf Surging Strikes. More than enough damage to pick up the KO there, and now Amoonguss, the last Pokemon to move once again for Wolfe, will not be able to put that Incineroar to sleep thanks to the safety goggles.
And now this is actually a much better spot for Wolfe. Look at this Water-type Amoonguss. There is not much left on Neil's side that can threaten big damage into it. Urshifu now has the option for a neutral close combat, which is nice, especially if you do consider the possibility of the Sword of Ruin boost from that Chien-Pao in the back. But Incineroar cannot do big damage. Again, it's not even packing Flare Blitz, but Knockoff won't do a ton to this Amoonguss thanks to it being so bulky. And now the Urshifu on Wolfe's end, also not heavily threatened by much. There's nothing that can hit it for more than neutral damage right now left on Neil's team.
I do wonder if Neil were to try and connect Knockoff with that Urshifu to remove the Choice Scarf, if that could be something to come in handy for him. That would also mean that the Chien-Pao, I think, would have a favorable speed alignment against Wolfe's Urshifu in the end game. You also have to wonder what Wolfe's final Pokemon is. You don't have to wonder for much longer, as Wolfe will switch out the Urshifu into the Landorus. So once again, saving that Landorus Incarnate for the back, Neil finally opting to use that Terrestrialization.
Terrestrialization comes through on the Incineroar, will make it a Ghost type, so much easier to stand up to both the Urshifu and the Landorus on Wolfe's side of the field, but unfortunately won't do much for him on this turn specifically, as Wolfe did opt to switch out the Urshifu.
Fake Out will flinch the Amoonguss, and close combat will be resisted by the Landorus. That was a great call there from Wolfe. Urshifu's lower defenses as well will also mean that both of his Pokemon have a better chance of dealing that critical damage he needs.
Now that this Landorus has come in on that close combat too, and Earth Power almost definitely will KO this Urshifu, so you have to worry about that if you're Neil. Your Chien-Pao in the back really doesn't want to be switching in either, because breaking that Focus Sash means that Urshifu on Wolf's side can come in and just KO it at any time. Again, this Incineroar cannot be redirected by Amoonguss because of those safety goggles, but you do have to worry about taking a big Earth Power.
You have to worry about taking an Earth Power, which is why Chien-Pao is going to take the field. Sword of Ruin will only be boosting the Urshifu's attack power here. Rage Powder means that the Urshifu will be targeting down the Amoonguss with an Aqua Jet. Even with the Sword of Ruin, it's not any damage, and Earth Power takes that Chien-Pao immediately down to the Focus Sash.
I really like the Earth Power going into that slot too. You're tempted to KO the Urshifu there, but getting important damage on that Incineroar, or in this case, bringing Chien-Pao down to just 1 HP remaining is really, really big for Wolfe. It's huge for that Incineroar Wolfe has in the, not Incineroar, Urshifu Wolfe has in the back, because when I keep saying Incineroar, when Urshifu comes back in, it has the option to go straight for that Choice Scarf Aqua Jet. There is no way that Neil has to redirect that Aqua Jet away or prevent it thanks to the Unseen Fist. Big, big damage into Chien-Pao here.
You also have to wonder if Neil's choice of not having a Flare Blitz on that Incineroar will ultimately hurt him. For now, though, we do see a Rage Powder redirecting Sacred Sword, will be activating the Citrus Berry onto the Amoonguss, bringing it up to above half its health. A second Earth Power from this Landorus will not connect with the Urshifu, and Amoonguss finally has a chance to consider, do I keep redirecting here and try and let Landorus clean up, or do I try and anticipate a switch in? There still is the Incineroar in the back for Neil.
There is, but I think if you're Amoonguss here, your main job right now is to protect Landorus from that Ice Spinner from the Chien-Pao. Landorus is a really, really scary threat for Wolfe right now, and this Amoonguss is not taking much damage at all from any of these attacks, especially considering Chien-Pao cannot use any of its same type attack bonus attacks for neutral damage into an Amoonguss if it goes for Rage Powder.
Incineroar will take the field once again for Neil. Chien-Pao down to a single HP of health. Sacred Sword will find its target into the Amoonguss. Earth Power into the Incineroar to drop it below half its health. And here comes that Sludge Bomb, finally connecting with the Chien-Pao for the KO.
Really love that play from Wolfe. That is a big risk, because if Chien-Pao goes for Ice Spinner on that turn, Landorus just gets knocked out, and Neil probably wins the game immediately. But knowing that Neil has to get rid of that Amoonguss, probably opted to go for Sacred Sword. He opts not to go for Rage Powder, which allows him to get huge damage into Incineroar and knock out that Amoonguss, not the Chien-Pao with Amoonguss. Now Fake Out is on the field. He cannot possibly ever fake out this Urshifu that is in the back for Wolfe. That's really big, because now, even though this Landorus can possibly get hit by something like an Aqua Jet or Surging Strikes from Urshifu on this turn, on the prior turns, on the later turns rather, Urshifu can come back in for Wolfe, not have to worry about getting faked out, and all of its attacks will land.
There is also a Protect available to the Amoonguss and the Landorus as well here. Do have to play carefully around the Unseen Fist ability from Urshifu, as that will allow it to deal damage through that Protect. But if Wolfe is feeling confident, you can try and anticipate where the Fake Out would go. Instead, Fake Out is allowed to connect with that Landorus. Close combat into the Amoonguss to knock it out. Both these trainers down to their final 2 Pokemon in game number 1.
Only 2 Pokemon remaining for both. Now this Urshifu on Neil's side is down to -1 defense and special defense. Could come in very handy for Wolfe, who will have to lock his Urshifu into its final attack of the game on this turn. Urshifu now at pretty good health remaining. 1 close combat from Neil's own Urshifu might be enough, but at the same time, you possibly have the option to go for your own close combat, take advantage of that -1 defense. But Aqua Jet comes through first, KOs Wolfe's Landorus.
Landorus is down. Urshifu is Wolfe's final Pokemon in this game number 1. Tries to use Surging Strikes to pick up the knockout on this Ghost-type Incineroar. It will take all 3 hits, but it is now just Urshifu remaining for both these Pokemon trainers.
You have to wonder, I don't think Wolfe's Urshifu has enough firepower left here. There is no Intimidate on Neil's Urshifu. It is at full attack, and even though it is at -1 defense, it still is resisting the Surging Strikes that Wolfe had to lock into, because if it locked into close combat, he would have had no way to damage the Incineroar.
Yeah, and unfortunately for Wolfe, you can see just how much damage the Surging Strikes will do here. It's possible, depending on how his Urshifu is trained, that there might be one more turn left in this game. But even with additional defense drops...
But he has Aqua Jet!
He has Aqua Jet!
Oh, it's not enough. Close combat, not enough to KO Urshifu, but unfortunately for Wolfe, Neil is not running Choice Scarf Urshifu. He has the option to switch up his attacks, and Aqua Jet here is enough to get Neil game 1 of this finals match here in Orlando, Florida.
Coming down once again to the wire for both of these Pokemon trainers. Neil staying calm, cool, and collected and finding that win condition, really in thanks to the flexibility that Mystic Water gives him on that Urshifu. You could see Wolfe pivot out that his own Urshifu, trying to ensure that he can make a correct choice when it comes to the point when you have to pick that final move to lock into. But because he was unable to match the priority of that Aqua Jet, just his Pokemon taken down.
It really was the fact that Neil had the option to switch moves there. We saw it go for a big close combat to KO the Amoonguss on Wolfe's side of the field, which allowed for no more Spores to be thrown out, no more Sludge Bombs to get some more chip damage, and of course the Aqua Jet came through that KO'd the Landorus. The flexibility of that Mystic Water, and of course the power boost from Mystic Water as well, powering up the Aqua Jet, which could have been a difference maker in KOing that Landorus at the very end of that game.
Yeah, and even though there was a little bit of luck on Wolfe's side, you know, we saw that poison come through from the Sludge Bomb. It just could not match the momentum that Neil had. And I think going into game number 2, I do wonder how Wolfe is going to switch things up a bit. I feel like he does have to bring his Urshifu regardless, because it does match up so well against the Incineroar, against that Ogerpon. Really forces terrestrializations in those situations. But it struggled to find purchase throughout the rest of the match otherwise.
It did. Even with this great play Wolfe made, predicting the Sacred Sword coming out from Qian Pao to KO it with the Sludge Bomb Amoonguss, it ended up not being enough just because the Urshifu on Neil's side had the power to go for that close combat. Neil had the fake out on deck just in time to prevent Landorus from going for the big Earth Power to KO that Urshifu. And of course, Unseen Fist made it so difficult for Wolfe to pivot around.
A big adjustment from Wolfe as we jump straight into game number 2. It's going to be the Landorus Incarnate and Incineroar lead for him against the Ogerpon and Incineroar once again for Neil.
Really like this adjustment. This Landorus is now facing, you know, a fire type and a fire type, both of which really don't want to be taking the earth powers. Of course, you do have the grass typing to make sure that earth power is not super effective, and then you have to worry about Sludge Bomb instead. And again, like we saw earlier on in this match, we are pretty sure that Wolfe's Incineroar is likely faster than Neil's, just based on how the Intimidates are playing out. We did see Wolfe's Intimidate go first in both of these games, so fake out advantage to Wolfe. But of course, if you choose to fake out the Incineroar on Neil's side of the field, you still have to worry about that Ogerpon.
You do, and just seeing how game number 1 played out, I don't know if you can necessarily risk getting so much damage down onto your Landorus Incarnate in turn 1 of this game. You probably want to try and match the fake out pressure of your own Pokemon, but we do get a turn 1 terrestrialization from Neil, going straight for that Hearth Flame Mask and Body Aspect activation to boost up Ogerpon's attack to negate the attack drop from Intimidate.
Yeah, it's going to be a nice little reset there from Neil. Fake out goes into his own Incineroar, which flinches next. Ivy Cudgel coming out. This is a neutral Terrafire boosted Ivy Cudgel into the Landorus on Wolfe's end.
And Landorus is able to take that attack and fire
huge.
back an Earth Power. That's now super effective. Gets the one-hit KO in return.
Great turn of events there for Wolfe. That is terrestrialization immediately gone for Neil. It was such a big part of that first game, which forced Wolfe not to lock into close combat because the Incineroar was a ghost type. But that is now just gone. The Ogerpon itself is gone, a huge source of damage, and now Wolfe has an immediate 4-3 Pokemon advantage. Urshifu coming in here actually in a very good spot, thanks to the lower health on Landorus. Obviously, a huge threat always into Incineroar, but you cannot discount the huge advantage Wolfe just gave himself with that turn 1, making sure your Landorus is protected from a fake out from Neil's own Incineroar, and getting that huge Earth Power KO.
Recognizing the importance of this Landorus in this matchup, Wolfe switches it out to send in his own Urshifu. It's actually a double switch, going to send in the Amoonguss, who can take those water-type attacks from the Urshifu so much more comfortably.
It's very comfortable, especially considering there is no Flare Blitz on Neil's Incineroar. The Amoonguss switch here is very hard to punish because there's no way you have to KO it on this turn. Surging Strikes come through, 3 hits into Amoonguss. Luckily for Neil is not that Rocky Helmet set, but he does knock off Wolfe's Incineroar's Choice Scarf, which I think in this scenario, actually not that bad. You give yourself the option to switch up your moves.
Yeah, I was going to say, going back to game number 1, it was ultimately the fact that the Urshifu was locked into an attack that gave Neil the advantage. That is no longer a restriction for Wolfe. Yes, it is going to be naturally a bit slower now because you don't benefit from the speed boost, but it is still a bit more flexible, which is going to be so important, especially knowing that Neil's last Pokemon this time is Rillaboom.
Rillaboom now hits the field, sets up the grassy terrain, and is threatening some big damage into Urshifu, but a big close combat straight into that Rillaboom slot from Wolfe's Urshifu. That is over half of Rillaboom's HP immediately gone. And
with a Sludge Bomb too! That's enough to pick up the KO on that Rillaboom on the switch. That was a fantastic prediction from Wolfe.
It's so hard to punish that too. Close combat does a huge amount of damage to that Incineroar, and really nothing in the back from Neil. Wants to take the combination of those 2 attacks. Wolfe very smartly going for that double target, knowing that Amoonguss is really not threatened by anything at this point, because I cannot reiterate enough the importance of Neil's Incineroar not carrying Flare Blitz. This Amoonguss is in such a great spot right now, especially considering there's no more option for Neil to switch. If Urshifu gets put to sleep, it can't swap out, try to get something more productive onto the field. This is a big 180 for Wolfe here in this second game.
And in recognition of that fact, I think Neil actually just locked in a forfeit in this game number 2. Wolfe has all 4 Pokemon of his remaining, and even though Neil arguably has one of the best attackers on his team available to him, that Urshifu with the Mystic Water is not powerful enough to power through the Amoonguss on its own. And just like that, we're heading into a game 3 in this finals.
We are. Frankly, that Amoonguss was going nowhere for the rest of this game. It still had its Citrus Berry, it had the Grassy Terrain Recovery, it had Regenerator, all available to it. And at the same time, it could redirect really anything from that Urshifu until Wolfe was able to get something onto the field to KO it. Really, really well played game from Wolfe there. The Ivy Cudgel not scoring a critical hit here, really a difference maker because we did not have that focus energy boost just yet. It was still that slightly raised chance, but not very raised, and a big Earth Power KO in return. Kind of the terrestrialization there coming around to bite Neil, because if it was not terrestrialized, probably able to survive 1 Earth Power, just maybe.
For sure, yeah.
So really big swing there that Neil took, but it unfortunately did not pay off.
And talk about big swings. I mean, Wolfe doubled into that slot. Yeah. Anticipating not just the Rillaboom making an appearance there, that's a Pokemon adjustment,
yeah,
but also optimizing for the damage in that position as well. That was such an incredible read from Wolfe, as really there was no indication at that point in the game that it was that Rillaboom that was present in the back of Neil's party.
There wasn't, but even if you think about the Pokemon Neil brought to the first game, if the Chien-Pao switches in there instead, for example, it gets immediately taken down to Focus Sash and then KO'd there. So a really smart double up, really just guaranteeing damage. Obviously the Urshifu will attack through Protect regardless, but Amoonguss cannot. So if you want to double target a slot, you double target the one that cannot protect, cannot terrestrialize, cannot avoid damage, just like Wolfe did there.
All right, well, these trainers are ready to go into game number 3. Let's make some noise. Let's get the hype going, as it's Amoonguss and Incineroar on the field for Wolfe against the Ogerpon and the Rillaboom for Neil.
I think immediate advantage to Wolfe here just because you get a crucial Intimidate down onto Ogerpon and Rillaboom right off the bat, starting off the game at -1 attack. Neil now actually is the one with the fake out advantage though, because Rillaboom should be faster than this Incineroar, will have the option to dictate which of Wolfe's Pokemon to possibly flinch from fake out. And of course the Rillaboom, the Ogerpon on Neil's side, not very heavily threatened by anything right now, could possibly take the chance to go straight for that Focus Energy.
And I think getting that focus energy in early would also mean that the Ogerpon is more likely to score those critical hits and really puts a lot of pressure on Wolfe from a board position as well, because if you know that your opponent has essentially a coin flip to deal a massive amount of damage to avoid any stat drops, to just play around those complications, you definitely don't want them to take that. But we see a Pokemon adjustment from Wolfe. Tornadus will take the field, will lose its focus sash for its trouble, but seeing that Ogerpon went for a focus energy with the Sludge Bomb and the poison, that's the best you could hope for from that turn for Wolfe.
100%, Gabby. That is a massive switch there. Wolfe has not brought Tornadus to either of these first two games, and it pays off immediately. Neil leading the two Grass-type Pokemon on his team is the perfect situation you want to find your Tornadus in. Now you have the option to go for a possible Tailwind, set your Pokemon up for a speed advantage later on. Even a Bleak Windstorm here would be really, really good. This Ogerpon is now at the boosted critical hit rate from Focus Energy, but it is still only a 50% chance to score a critical hit. So it's not guaranteed that that Focus Energy will pay off, especially because the Sludge Bomb came through, dealt a ton of damage, and crucially put this Ogerpon on a timer.
Some people may also be wondering if Wolfe is considering a Rain Dance on that Tornadus to try and weaken the fire-type attacks from that Ogerpon, but without confirmation about whether or not Neil's owner Shifu is on the field just yet. That is too risky of a play to make. Bleak Windstorm will not connect with the Rillaboom nor the Ogerpon. Woodhammer, though, into the Tornadus for a good amount of damage. Now this Amoonguss' Sludge Bomb will not connect with the Spiky Shield on the Ogerpon.
You have to respect the double into that slot if you're Wolfe. You know, if you're using Bleak Windstorm, it comes with the possible chance of missing like we did just see. And you cover for a Bleak Windstorm missing Ogerpon there. Unfortunately, you can't cover for missing the Rillaboom in that scenario, which does get some decent damage into Tornadus. But thankfully, Tornadus should still have the option to go for one final attack if it chooses to. The Tailwind with the Prankster ability will act first. And the Grassy Glide from Ogerpon on Neil's side might try to go first, but without enough damage to KO it, it will not go down even with the critical hit.
That Tornadus is unfortunately unable to go for a Bleak Windstorm this turn, as it will be taken down by those two priority Grassy Glides. But you trade your speed control Pokemon to knock out that critical hit boosted Ogerpon. I think that's the best trade that Wolfe could get in this situation.
Not a bad trade at all. Seeing Neil's last two Pokemon, it will be the Urshifu and the Chien-Pao. And considering Neil only has 3 physical attackers remaining, the Incineroar on Wolfe's side will be very important for the rest of this match. Rillaboom and Chien-Pao, again, both physical attackers. Rillaboom now down to -2 attack from that first Intimidate, and Chien-Pao at -1. The Amoonguss on Wolfe's side here, we saw it be so important against the Chien-Pao earlier on in this match, especially if you do opt for the Water Terrestrialization, which would be very handy coming in against this Chien-Pao. However, you do still have to worry about the Rillaboom's Grass-type attacks.
Sacred Sword from Chien-Pao into the opposing Incineroar to drop it down to below half its health, but the combination with the high horsepower, Incineroar is able to hold on. Flare Blitz is a one-hit knockout on that Rillaboom. Wolfe will lose the Incineroar with recoil damage as a result, but talk about a great trade. Now this Amoonguss is free to terrestrialize, and he gets the Spore in as well.
I'm 100% okay taking that trade if I am Wolfe. That is a massive survival from the Sacred Sword and the high horsepower combination, and of course, a huge one-hit KO into that Rillaboom. Now Neil and Wolfe are both down to their final 2 Pokemon, but Landorus coming in. There is nothing that can protect this Urshifu from a possible Earth power. Landorus is a very, very strong Pokemon, and unless Urshifu is trained to be incredibly specially bulky, a combination of Rage Powder to prevent an Aqua Jet into that Landorus slot and an Earth Power could be enough straight up for a KO here.
Both these trainers are down to their final 2 Pokemon. And remember, the title of a regional champion is on the line. And that's why you see Neil playing to every possible out. Will go for that stellar terastallization to boost the power of Chien-Pao's attacks once it wakes up from its sleep.
You have to wonder why Neil opted for the terastallization there. This Chien-Pao cannot possibly wake up on this turn, Gabby. There's no way this Chien-Pao attacks, and this terastallization cannot come in handy for at least one more turn. Landorus instead going immediately for a terastallization of its own to protect itself from a possible Aqua Jet coming out from this Urshifu. Earth Power into Chien-Pao brings it down to its Focus Sash.
Chien-Pao barely able to hang on. Urshifu surging strikes into the Landorus with the terastallization. It's going to be enough to knock it out.
It's enough for a KO into Landorus, but I think that's all Wolfe needs was that Earth Power into Chien-Pao. Really smart targeting there, because if Sludge Bomb comes through to KO this Chien-Pao, it will be a 1v1 Urshifu versus Amoonguss, and that is exactly what Wolfe wants.
Amoonguss is not the most offensive Pokemon that you would think of in the Regulation F metagame, but it is the Pokemon that's carrying Wolfe Glick's hopes and dreams of a repeat regional win in this season. Urshifu on the other side of the field, the Pokemon you think of for Regulation F and VGC, trying to find an opportunity, find the damage it needs to take this Amoonguss down.
I really just want to call out how smart that terastallization from Landorus was for Wolfe on that prior turn. Doing that means that it drops the water type weakness. Even though we saw it get knocked out by Surging Strikes anyway, it couldn't possibly be knocked out by Aqua Jet. All Wolfe needed was one Earth Power into the Chien-Pao, which could not wake up, could not protect. It's guaranteed damage. The combination from that and Earth Power and Sludge Bomb from the Amoonguss enough to KO it. And Wolfe very confident, just like we are, Gabby, that I think this Amoonguss can 1v1 the Urshifu, especially considering it just got put to sleep. It's got to take a couple turns to wake up, and this Amoonguss still has the Citrus Berry at its disposal.
It still has the Citrus Berry, and it is running Sludge Bomb, which looks like it will be about a 3 to 4 hit KO, depending on how much damage it does. We see the Urshifu wake up after a single turn of sleep. Will activate the Citrus Berry on this Amoonguss, but I think the most important thing to look for here is just when will that Amoonguss be in close combat range, as the odds that Wolfe went for a Spore this turn are so low.
They really are. Sludge Bomb comes through, and I think the worst thing that can happen is a Poison here for Wolfe, because you really want to put it back to sleep this turn. If it was Poison, that is not an option. Surging Strikes comes back through here from this Urshifu. Will attempt to put Amoonguss in close combat range. Gabby, like you called out, post combat, despite the critical hits from Surging Strikes, is slightly stronger at the end of the day.
It looks like both these trainers have heads up, waiting to see how this game will play out. I think this is one of those situations where Neil knows that he has to keep clicking Surging Strikes until it's close combat range. Wolfe knows that he needs maybe 2 more Sludge Bombs to knock out this Pokemon. Here comes the first one, 6 HP. We saw it wake up after 1 turn earlier. Will it wake up again? This is the turn that will decide your Orlando Regional Champion, and it is the Urshifu close combat into that Amoonguss. It holds on! It holds on through that attack. Amoonguss should have plenty of time to return and knock out with that Sludge Bomb, and Wolfe Glick is now your 2023 and 2024 Orlando Regional Champion.
What an insane endgame there, Gabby. Wolfe played that so incredibly well. Just knowing how exactly he needed to target his attacks, getting the Earth Power Sludge Bomb KO on Chien-Pao as much as he needed to get that Amoonguss Urshifu endgame. Played it so perfectly well, and Neil, even with the 2 one-turn sleeps, the minimum possible sleep length, twice in a row in that endgame, was barely not enough. Wolfe's Amoonguss with the Sludge Bomb, the choice that people have run to give it some more offensive power over the Pollen Puff, pays off for Wolfe, who becomes a repeat champion here in Orlando, Florida.
Not only a repeat Orlando regional champion, but our first trainer of this season to get their picture on that graphic twice. What an incredible accomplishment. And it just goes to show how close these games have been all weekend.
Yeah.
We saw Neil have every possible opportunity to wake up, to deal that damage, but in the end, it was Amoonguss with just enough in its defense and its HP to take those attacks.
Like you said earlier, Gabby, these margins all day, all weekend have been razor thin. Wolf playing so well, and even then, just barely able to KO that Urshifu in the end. If Urshifu had, gotten one critical hit with close combat, if it had, taken even one different turn of sleep, that plays out so differently, and especially this immediate Sludge Bomb poison. That was a massive boon for Wolf there because it put that Ogerpon on a timer and made kind of that early game a little bit easier to navigate for Wolf. And of course, the Tornadus, a really great brain because it forced attention from this Ogerpon and Rillaboom on the first 2 turns of the game.
It did, and I love how they cut in that crowd reaction shot as well. I don't know if it came through on the stream, but the crowd was just going absolutely nuts throughout this entire set. And I gotta say, I think this is one, honestly, for the history books. Like, it just was so back and forth, and both trainers are really on top of their game. And at the end of the day, Wolf was just able to find that extra bit of 6 HP to hold on. What an incredible set.
Wolf played so fearless with that Amoonguss in this 3rd game as well. We saw the Amoonguss face down a Fire-type Ogerpon and a Chien Pao and go straight for attacks both times, knowing exactly that Wolf needed this Amoonguss to be productive. You couldn't just protect, you couldn't just Rage Powder. The Spores and Sludge Bombs coming out from Amoonguss in this game were so massive. I don't think we saw it Rage Powder once this 3rd game, actually, Gabby. Who needs redirection when you can just take KOs yourself?
And I think that's an important thing to call out here about Amoonguss, especially now that we're rotating into a single restricted format. And, traditionally, I feel like you see Amoonguss all over the place in those formats. Just because a Pokemon has access to a move does not mean that you have to use it.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people, especially in these kind of situations, you think, okay, I'll redirect and I'll let my attacking Pokemon does what it does best. But at the end of the day, you just need that damage. It doesn't matter if it comes from an Urshifu or an Amoonguss to get the KO.
How crazy to think that Wolf has won 9 regional championships, Gabby. That is such an insane accomplishment. That is something that I think many people couldn't even dream of at this point. There's a very select group of trainers that have even won 1 regional, much less more than 1. Then you get all the way up to 9. Like, I could never. I could not.
I think in North America, at least, Paul Chua is the only trainer to ever come close. And especially with Indianapolis and LA on the horizon, I'm sure he's looking at his travel schedule and trying to see if he can catch up here. But still, I feel like Wolf has really cemented himself as one of the GOATs. Not the cats, the GOATs.
Not the cats, not the Incineroars, which he loves so dearly, but in fact, one of the greatest Pokemon players of all time, if not the greatest at this point. I mean, you have a World's Championship, you have a National Championship, you have an International Championship, you have 9 regionals, you have a Players' Cup. I don't even know what else is left. Like,
you go for the gauntlet, I think.
Yeah.
You try and be the Tord Reklev of VGC and win every single IC and hope that you can complete the gauntlet.
Well, if anyone can do it, it's Wolf.
Oh, for sure.
We'll see how that goes.
It goes to show as well, right? This was a last-minute decision for him to be here. I believe he got in at like 2 or 3 in the morning on Saturday.
Worth.
He won.
Yeah.
That's insane.
If that's what it takes, I'll schedule all my flights for like late. Next time I play a regional, I'm not getting in until morning of.
I want to sleep.
Well, I guess Wolf has shown that even if you don't get as much sleep as you might hope before day 1, you can still make it to day 2 and then power all the way through to a 9th title, Gabby. I can't get over that. 9 trophies. 9!
I know. Let's take a look at our final standings here. As you just saw, Wolf Glick won the tournament. Neil Patel coming in 2nd. Justin Karras, Ben Grissomer, Charles Moses, Zachary Weed, Joshua Lorsey, and Aaron Brock. Y'all, if you're just tuning in right now, I'm going to be real with you. You need to wait until we're done, of course, but then go back and watch the VOD from this today's tournament. I mean, this weekend, really, because there were just so many incredible matches. I don't think I could have asked for a more exciting top cut here this weekend.
Truly, every single match we got to see today and yesterday were so much fun to talk over, to watch backstage, to hear all of you react to out in the crowd. And we have a really cool mix of players, even just in this top 8 as well. Obviously, Wolfe, who we've talked about ad nauseum at this point, Justin, who's a regional champion, Ben Grismer, who's had some great success, but of course, Charles Moses and Zachary Weed, both making their first appearances in top 8 at a regional. Really cool mix. Of course, Josh Lorsey and Aaron Brock have had success at regionals and internationals before too. So it's really cool to see both the veterans keep making their stamp on this community, on this game, and see newer players like Charles and Zachary break into that top echelon as well.
Yeah, and take a good look at these Pokemon, because the next time we see y'all in Indianapolis, let me tell you, you're probably still going to see your Incineroars and your Rillabooms and your Urshifus, but I do think things will be looking a little bit different. But when I look back at Regulation F, this is the Regulation F that I want to remember.
Yes.
You know, yes, you do have your hard hitters, you do have meta Pokemon, which are meta for a reason, but you have these unique strategies, these little techs that just make these trainers stand out.
Lou, look away. Lou, if you're watching,
I was going to say, that is a challenge there from Wolfe, Glick to Lou, but we'll let them handle that maybe.
Yeah, I mean, of course, Wolfe not using the Gastrodon this time around maybe spared some of Lou's wrath. We'll have a chance to use the Fluid later, but of course focusing on those 6 Pokemon he did bring. The Fluttermane didn't make an appearance at all in the finals, but I'm sure it was also a huge part of Wolfe's team. We saw it on stream multiple times, making use of that booster energy, special attack boosting photosynthesis set, one that has come back around to popularity after falling out of favor for some of the more speed Icy Wind support-oriented sets.
Yeah, and I also want to shout out the stellar terrestrialization on the Chien-Pao from Neil. I think that was something we saw very early on in Regulation F, you know, trying to take advantage of this new Terra type that the Blueberry Academy DLC gave us. But
yeah.
I always thought that Chien-Pao had the best opportunity to take advantage of that stellar Terra type, as it was fast enough. You could use all 3 of its attacks effectively to get that boost. Really cool to see it do well here this weekend, and really makes my brain start thinking about how you can use stellar terrestrializations moving forwards.
Well, maybe we'll get to hear a little bit about that from Neil, the user of that Terra Stellar Chien-Pao, in our awards ceremony. Let's throw it over to Joe Brown on the stage with our 2 finalists.
Thank you, everybody. It's time to start our awards ceremony here in Orlando. We began the weekend with over 900 trainers in the Masters Division, and now we know our finalists and our winner. Let's start with our finalists. Give a nice round of applause for our finalists here, Neil Patel. Congratulations, Neil. I'm sure it's a bit of mixed emotions right now. You're a couple hit points from a regional title, but you finally broke through that top 8 curse. So how are you feeling right now?
I feel really good. This is the first time that I broke through the, first time I ever won a game in cut, and I feel like I won both of them really well. I did kind of toss. If I Terra Poisoned the Urshifu, I probably would have won, but I think that's because I was clicking too quickly and not really thinking through the turn enough. So yeah, it's definitely something to learn and move on for next time, but I'm really happy with it. A top 8 second feels super good.
Yeah, congratulations again. Round of applause for Neil. Best of luck for the rest of the season for you. Go celebrate with your friends and family. And now, our 9-time regional champion, back-to-back Orlando regional champion, Wolfe Glick. Congratulations, Wolfe. I'm sure you're just getting used to this feeling. You just expect to win every event. How does this championship compare to your other 8 regional titles?
You know, I don't like to kind of rank within them. It's really meaningful for me to win this. I went to EUIC with this exact same team, no changes, and I just barely missed out in top cut, and I really felt like this team could go all the way, you know what I mean? Like, I really felt like it was a really special, good team, and so to come here kind of on a whim, you know, booked on Wednesday, last minute, and ended up not only doing well, but winning the whole thing, it's extremely, extremely meaningful to me, and I'm just so proud of myself and so grateful for all the support I have.
Yeah, honestly, the best last-minute decision that you could ever have, possibly. Congratulations to Wolfe Glick. So it's been a phenomenal weekend. Wolfe, go along and celebrate with your friends and family. Great job by everybody here in the venue, the tournament staff, all the judges, all the players that were able to participate here in Orlando. It's been a fantastic weekend. I've had a blast We've had a wonderful stream here, and we are going to close it out in the lounge. So, if we're ready over in the lounge, thank you, everybody. Take it away.